Please be seated. The court is now back in session. Now I hand over the floor to the lead co-lawyers for the civil parties to put the question to the witness, and you have 15 minutes. You may now proceed. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to put the questions to the witness, and good morning to Mr. President, Your Honors, everyone in and around the courtroom. Good morning, Mr. Witness. My name is Pechong. I am the national lead co-lawyer for the civil parties. I have a few questions to put to you for the next 15 minutes. I will continue from the questionings of the prosecution. When you were working at the Tribunal work site, when you were working there, you were still a child. Can you tell the court, when you were working over there, carrying earth, building the dams, were you happy working there? Were you happy with the work you were assigned? Response. When I was working there, I was happy, but it was, no, rather, I was not happy. How could we be happy? Because we did not have enough food to eat, and then we were made to work very hard. Question. The speech, the quotation of the speech of Mr. Kyu Sampon read out to you by the prosecution. It says they were happy, they minding cattle, catching the birds, and building the dams, carry waters and earth, and they were happy. So from that, I would like to ask whether or not this quote from the speech was a reflection of the actual situation at the time. The President, witness, please hold on. The National Counsel for Mr. Kyu Sampon, you may proceed. Kung Samon. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to object to this questions for two reasons. One is it is leading, purely leading question. And second, this witness cannot speak for other children at the work site during the Democratic Cambodia period. Mr. President, that is not uncommon that we read the quote from a document and then we ask the witness to respond to that. I would like to ask this witness to respond or react to the speech quoted of Kyu Sampon. So I think that that is the usual ways of putting the questions to the witness. The President, Counsel, could you please put the question again to the witness? It is rather difficult for him to respond to the question. Remember the last question posed by the prosecutor, he could not respond to it very well. So please simplify your question. Counsel, I would like to only extract a short portion of the speech. I quote, "Our children were very happy with all the tasks, such as building dams and digging canals," end quote. So from this quote, he indicated that children at that work site were happy with the work they were assigned to. So my question to you, could you tell the court whether or not the children were really happy at the time? That was a reflection of what Mr. Kyu Sampon said. The President. Witness, you are now instructed to respond to this question based on what you experienced and you observed at the time. Witness. That was what he said, but actually I myself was not happy. How could we be happy because we could not go to school? How could we be happy carrying dirt, carrying fertilizer? How could we be happy? If we could have been happy if we could go to school, but we were made to work very hard. We did not even have anything to wash our hair. How could we be happy in that condition? Question. Could you tell the court when you were working in Trapang Thmo work site in Battambang province, now in Banti Menchay, uh, did you go to school or did they teach you any literacy or numeracy? Response. No, I did not go to school. I could have been literate if I were able to go to school. But at that time, we learn how to dig the canal, how to carry earth, how to collect the fertilizers. That was what we learned. Question. So at the time, did you want to go to school, or did you ever think of going to school at all? Response. At that time, we did not even think of going to school because there was no school. We only saw children carrying cow dung, fertilizers and dirt. There was no school at all, so we could not even think of going to school. Question. Let me expand it a little bit further on your work unit. Was it a child unit? Was it called the children unit at that time? And how many members were there in your unit back then? Response. It was my estimation. There were many members. In my estimation, there could have been around 1,000 to 2,000 members. I did not know where they took the children from, but they recruited them or selected them from the villages, those who were big enough, they could carry dirt and fertilizers, they would select them. Question. So there were 1,000 or 2,000 children. Could you tell the court more specifically of their age range? What was the youngest age and the eldest one in your unit? Response. At the time, they recruited from 14 years of age and above. I don't know the eldest age, but at that time I told them that I was 14 years old. They asked me how old I was, and I said that I was 14 years old, and then they told me that, well, if I was 14 years old, then I could, separate from my parents and I could go to work. Question. So you said there were around 1,000 or 2,000 children. Can you tell the court the eldest member in your unit, how old were they, the eldest one? Response. They recruited children from the age of 14 to 15, 17, 16, 17, 18, and then there was another special children group or unit. This special unit would be tasked to carry dirt to the to build the dam. So at that time they lined the children into queues, and then they would help each other to carry the earth. Question. You responded to the question by the prosecutor about biography. You said that there was no biography taking at that time. So you were telling the court about these things for only the group or the unit you were in at that time. In other words, the biography were not taken for only your group, but not for others working at the Tribunal work site. Is that correct? Response. No, they did not prepare any biography. They only asked me how old I was, and I told them that I was 14 years old. So they did not actually take or write down the biography. So they would ask one from one to another, and then they would put them into different units. And I did not know where the children were all from. I only knew myself that I was 14, and there were many people, and I could not know other people. We stayed together for some time, then we got to know some of them. Question. You also mentioned that there was meeting attended by Tawal. So, to your recollection, did you attend the meeting regularly, for example, weekly or monthly with any other person other than Tawal? Response. There were other people, but I could not know who they were. I only heard Tawal, and I actually did not even pay attention to what they said because I only attended that meeting. Question. Rather, let me put it this way. Were you ever called for a meeting in your unit, I mean unit by unit? Were you ever called to attend such meeting? Response. No, for that meeting I was never called, but generally we held the meeting at our work site for about half an hour or so each time, so sometimes 1 hour before lunch or after lunch. We would have that meeting. During the break, they convene this unit meeting. Question. During this unit meeting, if you can recall, what was the meeting about and how often was it held? Response. It varied at the time, sometimes once every 2 days, and all they said was that we had to reiterate our conviction to the work, and that was it in the meeting. Question. Thank you. Let me expand it a little further. You were staying at the Bangmore work site. Could you tell the court about the sleeping condition over there, whether or not you were given mosquito net or the bed to sleep on, or the shelter at the time? Response. As for the sleeping place, of course there was a shelter, but there was no blanket, no mosquito net, but there was a shelter. They used the we could stay together for 300-400 people. There was a very long communal hall or shelter where we could sleep at night. But at that times, we could sleep for a short period of times. In other words, we would go to bed at around 8, and then we got up at 3 in the morning. Questions. So if you had such a short time to sleep at night, did you have enough energy the next morning to continue working? Response, of course not. Question. You also said that you carried earth and then you slept with your hoe and your earth carrying basket. Did that happen often with you? Response. Adverse everyday occurrence. I slept with my hoe every day so long as I went to work. Question. So when you were sleeping with your hoe nearby, so could you tell the court how many hours did you sleep per day? Response. It depended on the people who were carrying up the dam. If they it took them rather long times, then we could have a longer time to take a nap as well. Question. I have only little time left. I go to another questions. When you were working at the Bangtmo Dam, did you only dig the earth, or you sometime were made to carry the dirt as well? Response. We were rotated. On one days we would be made to dig the dirt, and the other days we were made to carry the dirt. Question. You said that you saw people being killed and then they were buried on the bed of the dam. How far was it from the scene to the place where you were working? Response. I saw that occurrence when I was working on the days. It was about 50 meters away, around 40 to 50 meters away. Question. Did you witness it, the killing? Did you witness the killing by yourself? Response. Yes, I saw it by my own eyes. I was shocked when I was carrying the dirt. Question. Did the killer was the killer man or woman? Response. Of the three people, was the chief was the female. Questions. Rather, let me put this question in this way. I would like to talk about the victims, the one who was killed. Was the victim male or female? Response. Male. Question. This is my last question. You did not have enough food ration. In other words, you did not have sufficient food to eat, and sometimes your ration was reused. Did you have the opportunity to look for something else to supplement your daily ration? And if you could look for that supplementary food, what was it? Response. No, not at all. We could not find any supplementary food. We only had access to what was given to us, the food ration, the daily ration they gave to us. And sometimes we had to pick the skin of the potato where they threw away, then we could eat. But generally we were very frightened as well to do that. If we were found picking that and eating that, we would risk our life being killed. Mr. President, I do not have any further question. I thank you very much for the opportunity to ask the questions to the witness, the President. Thank you. I think next the judges of the bench might want to have a few more questions to ask to this witness. Judge Fence, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you, President. Witness, my first question is aimed to help me understand how you use numbers. My understanding is you can't read and write, but apparently you can count. Is this correct?
I could count only simple numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could do that.
So how far up can you count? Till 10, till 100, till 500?
I could count to a lot of numbers. But anyway, I could count only up to 20, 30, something like that, but too many numbers I cannot count.
Mm-hmm. And I guess then that you cannot calculate, meaning add numbers or multiply. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, I noted that specifically in the high numbers, you appear to use them perhaps rather randomly. Let me give you an example. When you were asked how many children or juveniles were at the work site, you gave at least 3 different numbers: 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Now my question to you is, are these numbers based on some kind of calculation, or is this your way of saying very many?
That's what I saw so many people, scores of people. I could not count all of them. So I could only say that there were up to thousands, tens of thousands of them. There were many people building the dam.
Now, I understand, but my question was, when it comes to young people, juveniles or children, you said at one point there were 1,000, at another point there were 2,000, and I think yesterday there were 3,000. So did you actually, as I said, count them? Or is this your way of saying there were really many young people there?
It was my estimation, because there were many people. I did not do the counting because there were scores of people. There were not only 10, 20 people, but wherever I went, there were people. So there were so many people. So in my estimation, there were that many thousands.
I understand. I'm moving now to another subject. And I really want you to keep in mind, tell me if you don't remember something. Can you remind us how long you actually were at this work site?
At that times it was a rather long period of times. I cannot recall uh, how many months or years it took, but I know that it lasted for a long period of time.
So it could even have been years. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, and that was my estimations. It was rather long. I did not know exactly how many months or years, and I could not bear with it, so I had to escape.
I understand that. Let's get away from the numbers. Do you remember that you saw changes of season while you were there? One rainy season or two rainy seasons? Three rainy seasons? If you don't tell me, it's just I'm trying to help you.
When they mobilized the children force to work over there, it was only at the during the dry season. But during the rainy seasons, we were made to carry the seedling.
Do you remember how many dry seasons you were working there at the dam?
For my unit, we were mobilized there for only one season.
Okay. Now I'm changing the subject again. I'm now coming to the killings you described to, I believe, the prosecutor. You said there were killings at the worksite, and they were meant to deter other workers. And then you said they happened every 10 days, but you only saw it twice. Now my question is, if you only saw it twice, how do you know it happened every 10 days?
It was my estimation, and I saw the killing of one person when I was carrying the dirt, and then after a while, then I saw another killing. So it was my estimation, but what I saw was two times. That's why I estimated that they would kill this person every 5 or 10 days. But I did not know what happened after I left.
Let me just clarify if I understood you. The time period between the two killings you saw was 5 to 10 days, and that's why you thought this happens every 5 to 10 days? Is this what you are saying?
Yes, that is correct.
And now my last set of questions. I'm changing the subject again. I'm now coming to the incidents you described yesterday where people collapsed at the worksite and There were attempts to resuscitate them, but they died. That's what you told the prosecutor yesterday. Now, what I would want to know is what happened to the bodies, if you know.
I did not know where they took the body to. People who died on site were never kept there. Their bodies were taken away, and I did not know whether they were taken and buried elsewhere or they were taken somewhere else.
Can you tell us how they were carried away? Were they put on a cart, or did people carry them?
The body was carried away by two people. It's like on a stretch. That's how the body was taken. Actually, the stretch was made from wooden pieces, and I did not know where the body was taken to. At that time, I did not see any hammocks that could be used to carry the body.
And how did you actually know that these bodies on the stretchers were dead? Did somebody say, we are giving up now on resuscitation, the guy is dead, or did you just assume that?
The person who collapsed and later died was at a spot near where I carried the earth up to the embankment of the dam. After the resuscitation, the person did not survive. And of course, I could only have a glimpse at the person, and then I heard that the person died. We were not allowed to stand there to look at the person for 5 to 10 minutes. No, that was not the case.
I'm not blaming you, I'm just trying to clarify things. Who tried to resuscitate this person or these people?
It was the workers on site, because over there when a person collapsed, then we would not distinguish whether it's a member of a group or a member of the group next to us. We would go there and try to assist the person. However, after the person died, I did not know how the report went through the chain of command. People would come and pick up the body.
How many of those instances did you actually see? How often did you see that the person collapsed and died on the spot after co-workers had tried to resuscitate him or them?
I saw it rather often, but I did not count how many times that I saw it. It happened almost every day. Sometimes a person collapsed, sometimes two workers collapsed on one day, but sometimes they could be resuscitated and did not die.
Now, I know there are a couple of difficulties with numbers. Let me try. I understand that people collapsed daily, but they didn't die daily. When I asked you how many of those incidents you have seen, you said many. Now, my question is, for instance, more than 10 or less than 10? Because I understand this is a range where you can count. Did you see more than 10 of those incidents where people died, or less than 10?
It is more than 10 because it happened almost every day. So worker collapsed, at least each worker collapsed each day. Yeah, sometimes there were 2 or 3 workers who collapsed on the day.
Again, I'm interested in those who collapsed and died. So the number of those who collapsed and died was more than 10 at least. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Next question is intentionally vague, given that you don't know numbers. Many more than 10? Many more than 10 who collapsed and died.
Please repeat your question.
I'm trying to figure out how many people you actually saw collapse and die. And I understand there is a difficulty with high numbers. So you told me clearly more than 10. Clearly more, you saw more than 10 people collapse and die at the worksite. Now my question is, did you see many more than 10 people collapse and die at the worksite?
What else you want me to respond to you? I said people collapsed and died, and I responded 3 times already to you. I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
President, thank you. And the chamber would like to hand the floor to the defense teams. First, to the defense team for Noon Chi to put questions to this witness. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Witness. I would like to ask you some questions. Let me start by asking you some questions in relation to the very last topic, the collapsing of people. You described one example in respect of which you said you saw, or you had a glimpse. Who was the person that you said collapsed? Who was he? Was he a member of your unit? Or was he a member of another unit?
The worker was in the same big unit, but in a separate, a small unit. And the worker that I saw collapse was not a member of my group.
So is it then fair to say you didn't know him personally?
course, there were many workers in the big unit, and we did not know everyone's name. I only focused on working, and I only knew the person was in the same big unit, but I did not know his name. And that happened to other workers. Maybe today I saw the faces of those workers, and next day I saw different faces.
If you didn't know the person that you said collapsed, if you only saw a glimpse or only had a glimpse of what happened, how did you know the person collapsed because of exhaustion?
That was my personal conclusion. It's because of the overworked and due to sickness, people collapse while they were working.
But is it correct you didn't actually speak to any of the medics or any of the people who carried this person away? The fact that he collapsed because of exhaustion is only your conclusion. Is that correct?
There was no medic came to attend the person. As I said, during the regime, there was no medic there to provide treatment.
Are you saying there weren't any medics working at the Taping Tma Dam worksite?
Yes.
And if someone got sick in your unit, for instance in the morning, and he said to your unit chief, I am sick, I cannot work, what would happen?
If we were sick, we did not have the authority to ask for permission from the big unit's chief. We could only ask permission from our group chief. However, we had to go to work although we were sick, and at the end of the day, maybe an hour or two before our rest time, we were given some round pellets to take, and of course, there was no guarantee the pellets that we took actually treated us.
Did you or any members of your unit ever go to a hospital nearby when that person stayed sick?
I never saw a hospital, and I did not see any worker being sent to the hospital. What I saw was that when people got sick, they informed the group chief, and for some reason the group chief delivered the pellets for the workers to take.
This collapsing of people that you described, is that something that was seen by many workers at the dam?
Almost everyone saw it, but of course I cannot tell you who saw it. We knew each other by faces only and not the names. You could see a person was in rather good shape today, and maybe next day his body was swollen. Or the day after, another worker had their body became so shrink, so skinny and bony. Everybody looked so terrible, and it's even hard to identify and recognize the person that you saw yesterday.
If you said so many people saw this as well, can you explain to me why only you in this courtroom ever saw somebody collapse and die while working at the Taping Tama Dam worksite?
Objection, Mr. President. Counsel is asking this witness to explain the evidence of other witnesses without having any idea who the other witnesses are, what part of the dam they worked on. He's been very clear that what he saw was, for the most part, limited to people in his unit and nearby him. It's an unfair question to ask him to explain evidence that he didn't hear.
Well, Mr. President, we've all been in this courtroom hearing witnesses. Nobody testified to this fact. Maybe he has an explanation as to why this is the case. Maybe indeed his unit was at a particular place. Maybe the regime under which he was working was particularly harsh. There could be all kinds of reasons that this witness can give to us, which would explain this remarkable discrepancy.
President, the observation and objection by the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor is sustained. And if you wish to put such a question, please quote the statement extract from the previous witnesses. And I believe so far we haven't heard any testimony from witnesses who worked in the children group like the current one before us. So if your question is rather too broad, I don't believe this witness can provide you an answer, and it does not help in ascertaining the truth in this case at all.
Thank you, Mr. President. Although it's kind of hard to cite evidence which doesn't exist. However, I shall move on. Smaller detailed question, Mr. Witness. Did I just understand you correctly when you said that you didn't have any mosquito nets while sleeping at night?
In the regime, no, there were no mosquito nets. That's how I went through. So how can I tell you if there was any?
Well, let me then quote something you said to the investigators, Mr. President, E3/7755, Khmer ERN 00279113, English 00293003, and French 00338220. And that this is what you said. When I lived there, they made a long shelter for us to sleep in. We had mosquito nets and blankets, but we did not have pillows. End of quote. So, Mr. Witness, you seem to be saying to the investigators a few years ago that you did have mosquito nets. So which one is it? Did you have mosquito nets or you didn't have mosquito nets?
President, witness, please hold on. And Counsel Pich Ong, you have the floor. Pich Ong. The Khmer version of the ERN, as stated by the Council Copper did not have any mention of mosquito net. It talks about the long shelter with 2 levels, and he was given a sleeping mat, and the mat was taken every time he went. So in the Khmer version, there is no mentioning at all of a mosquito net.
I shall read. Maybe I gave the wrong page. It was Khmer 00279114. Of course, I cannot read the Khmer, but in my English version it says, when I lived there, they made a long shelter for us to sleep in. We had mosquito nets and blankets, but we did not have pillows.
President witness, please respond to the question. Witness, I cannot recall that. The event took place a long time ago. Councillor Pech Ong, you have the floor. Pech Ong, thank you, Mr. President. The page quoted by Councillor Copper, that is on the ERN mentioned by Councillor Copper, is not related to the Trapeang Thmo Dam, although the word mosquito net was mentioned, but this is a separate event not related to Trapeang Thmo Dam. Thank you.
That could be, I don't know. But then let me rephrase my question. Mr. Witness, you said that there were no mosquito nets at all during the regime. You just said that. But here you said that maybe at another site you had mosquito nets and blankets. Is that correct?
President witness, please respond to the Defense Counsel's question. I do not know how to respond to that question.
I will move on then, Mr. Witness. Let me now ask you another question. This morning and yesterday you spoke about the person who was in charge of all the Trapeang Thmo Dam worksite, Taval. You were asked yesterday by the prosecution whether you knew if Taval remained in his position or whether he was replaced. And then you answered yesterday, I don't know where he went after 1979, but he was there until the end of the regime. Can you tell me how you knew that, or how you know rather, that Taval was there until the end of the regime?
I do not know what year, but I was relocated to work at home and to dig a pond there. And they mentioned that the pond was named Tawal's Pond, so everybody refers to Tawal. Although I myself never saw him in person, and we always heard that the instructions for us or the assignments for us came from Tawal.
ហើយរហូតមកដល់ថ្ងៃ
And then when the Vietnamese came to attack while I was digging the pond, I fled. And everybody went through his or her houses. And that's my conclusion that Tawal was in charge until that day, the day of the liberation, because every assignment, every work site was named after him.
In your recollection, while working at the dam in your unit, was Tawal always the one who was in charge of the whole work site?
As I said, I never saw Tawal in person. However, every time my chief told us about the work assignment, he always mentioned Tawal. That's the instructions came from Tawal. That's when we had to build a dam or dig a canal, or that later on we had to dig a pond. And during a meeting, I was told that there would be a big meeting where Tawal would attend for the inauguration of the pond digging project.
Maybe a bit difficult question, but do you remember at one point in time when you were working at the dam that the group chief didn't say anymore the orders come from Tawal but from someone else? Or did he always say orders were coming from Tawal?
During each meeting that I attended, I always heard Tawal's name. I heard people saying that Tawal came to inaugurate a project work site to build a dam or to dig a pond. And regarding the pond that I was assigned to dig was not completed when the regime fell, so I fled to my home while other workers fled to their respective villages. And during the big meeting, although there was an announcement that Tawal was present, there were so many attendees and I could not recognize which one was Tawal. And usually the meeting took place in late afternoon, and there was also a performance by dancers. However, the theme of the dance was nothing more than digging the earth or carrying the earth.
Again, maybe a difficult question, but I'm posing it anyway. We know in this courtroom that the building of the dam, the Chaping Tamar Dam, started in 1977, around February. And we also know that Tawal wasn't working anymore at the dam as of June 77, a few months later. If I tell you this, would that help you in telling us which period you were working there?
President witness, please wait, and Councillor Pech Ong, you have the floor. Pech Ong. The question put by the defense counsel to the witness is improper. He mentioned that everybody here in this courtroom knew about the starting date of the building of the dam, which is not a proper assumption. Councillor Copper should refer to any particular document which mentions the starting date of the dam building project, rather than to say that everybody in this courtroom knows the starting date of the dam project.
Well, the objection shows that I was wrong in assuming that everybody knows the date. But I think it's not in dispute that the dam building started in February 77. There are FIBIS reports. There's other evidence that goes to show that the dam building started in February 77. So I think, in all fairness, I can say that. It's unfortunate that the civil party lawyer doesn't seem to know that, but I'm trying to assist the witness by phrasing my question in simple terms, but I think I'm allowed to say between February and June as two dates that we relatively know for sure are in existence.
President, the chamber does not give the floor to a party to make a second objection to the response by the party who put question to the witness. For that reason, lead co-lawyer, please be seated. President, Councillor Copper, please rephrase your question and your assumption that everybody in this courtroom knows that the starting date of the building project of the Tribunal dam is rather improper, and that is your personal conclusion. Because so far we have heard of different dates the project of building the dam started. You can put a question to this witness about his personal knowledge as to when the dam worksite commenced, or when he himself was assigned to participate in the building of the dam. Of course, you acknowledge that your question is difficult, and for that reason, it should be refreshed properly. And it is rather improper for you to imply that everybody in this courtroom knows about the starting date of the dam project.
Mr. Witness, do you know when you started working at the Tribunal Dam's work site? Was that in 1977?
Yes, for the date, the month, the year, or the day, I do not recall. I did not know when it was started. I do not recall. I can only recall that at that time I was made to carry dirt.
And maybe my final short question to follow up. Do you know how many months or what period of time you worked at the dam? For how long?
It lasted a rather long period of time, but I do not recall the exact time period. And at that time, even if I worked for 1 month, it was like for 10 years because the working condition was very harsh at that time. And at that time, the 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days period was like a lifetime for me already. Working condition was so harsh. The President, the time is now appropriate for lunch adjournment. The chamber shall adjourn now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon. Court officer, please assist the witness during the recess and have him back to this courtroom before 1:30 p.m. Security guards are now instructed to bring Mr. Kyusumpon to the holding cell downstairs and have him back in this courtroom this afternoon before 1:30. The court is now adjourned.